Something is happening across Illinois right now, and it's being completely overlooked by mainstream headlines. While the statewide average home price looks okay on paper, the reality underneath is far more alarming. Certain Illinois neighborhoods and cities are being hollowed out, losing residents, losing demand, and losing value, at a pace that should be waking people up. Here are the facts before we dive in. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, Illinois lost over 4,000 domestic residents to other states in 2025 alone. That makes it the third worst state in the entire country for population loss, behind only California and New York. And according to Atlas Van Lines, 54% of their Illinois clients in 2025 were moving out of the state. Allied Van Lines actually ranked Illinois #1 for outbound moves. When people leave, demand for housing leaves with them, and in specific neighborhoods across this state, that is already showing up in the numbers. In this video, we are going to walk through 11 specific Illinois neighborhoods where market conditions are under serious stress. Backed by real data from Zillow, Redfin, Illinois Realtors, and the U.S. Census Bureau. If you own a home in Illinois, or you're thinking about buying one, stay until the end. This information could save you from a very costly mistake. A neighborhood number 15 downtown Rockford. Let's start in Rockford, Illinois' second largest city. Rockford has been battling economic headwinds for years. The city's manufacturing base has steadily eroded, and that has a direct impact on housing demand. According to real estate data, Rockford's inventory rose 8% as market dynamics shifted, meaning more homes sitting available with fewer buyers competing for them. Nationally, housing markets tighten when supply drops. But in Rockford, the opposite has been happening in certain pockets. Inventory rising while buyer demand stays weak. That combination puts downward pressure on prices. The city consistently appears in lists of Illinois markets, where affordability is high but buyer activity remains sluggish. When a market is affordable but still not attracting buyers, that tells you something deeper is wrong with local economic confidence. Rockford's challenge isn't just a housing issue. It's a jobs issue, a population issue, and ultimately a confidence issue. And all three are reflecting in the housing market right now. Neighborhood number 20C, Springfield's older residential. Springfield is the state capital of Illinois, but even government employment hasn't been enough to shield its housing market. According to Norada Real Estate's 2025 to 2026 Illinois housing market forecast, Springfield is among the cities projected to see home value declines by May 2026. While the statewide average shows modest growth, Springfield's local market faces headwinds that the average doesn't capture. Here's the specific data point that stands out. According to Inago's housing analysis, the median home price in Springfield as of late 2025 was $18,700, significantly below the statewide median of around $29,000. And even at that affordable price point, sales activity has been subdued. What's happening here? Population pressure. Illinois as a whole is losing domestic residents at a rate that ranks 44th out of 50 states. According to the Census Bureau, Springfield, as a mid-sized downstate city, is feeling that drain. Fewer people means fewer buyers. Fewer buyers means prices stagnate or fall. If you own property in Springfield's older residential districts, the ones built decades ago that require updates and maintenance, the competitive pressure from newer inventory is real, and the pool of buyers willing to pay top dollar is shrinking. Neighborhood number 30 Galesburg. Galesburg is one of the most concerning markets in all of Illinois right now. According to Norada Real Estate's Illinois forecast, Galesburg is explicitly named as one of the cities projected to see among the largest home value drops in Illinois through May 2026. This isn't speculation. It's a forecast built on current market trajectory data. Why Galesburg? This is a classic Rust Belt story. The city was once a thriving manufacturing hub. Maytag, the appliance giant, had a major presence here before shutting down and moving operations to Mexico in 2004. A devastating blow the city has never fully recovered from. Population has been declining steadily. Knox College provides some economic stability, but it's not enough to offset the broader demand problem. When population shrinks, housing demand shrinks. When housing demand shrinks in a market with aging housing stock, values come under serious pressure. According to the Illinois Policy Institute, Illinois' housing inventory has fallen across all 26 metro areas, tracked by Zillow since 2018. But Galesburg is in a different situation. It's not a shortage problem. It's a demand problem. There are homes available. The buyers are the ones disappearing. That is a fundamentally different and more dangerous dynamic for homeowners. And neighborhood number 40, Jacksonville. Jacksonville, Illinois is another city explicitly flagged in the 2025 to 2026 housing forecast as facing projected value declines. Jacksonville is a small city of around 18,000 people in Morgan County, about 30 miles west of Springfield. Like many downstate Illinois cities, it has faced decades of slow population decline and limited economic diversification. The pattern here follows what we see across the struggling parts of Illinois, when younger residents leave for opportunity elsewhere. And according to census data, 95% of Illinoisans who left the state in 2024 moved to states with lower tax burdens. Smaller cities like Jacksonville are left with an aging population that is more likely to be selling homes than buying them. The math is simple and brutal. More sellers than buyers means prices fall. In a market with limited job growth and persistent outmigration, there is very little catalyst to reverse that equation. If you're a homeowner in Jacksonville who is counting on your home as a retirement asset, this market data should be prompting serious conversations with your financial advisor about your timeline. Neighborhood number 5, Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon sits in southern Illinois, and southern Illinois is where the housing stress gets most severe. Mount Vernon is also specifically named in the Norada housing forecast as one of the Illinois cities projected to see larger home value declines through 2026. But this isn't surprising when you look at the broader regional picture. According to migration data analyzed by MoveBuddha, 7 of the top 10 fastest shrinking small Illinois cities are located in the southern tip of the state. This region, once dependent on farming and river commerce, has seen steady economic decline for decades as those industries contracted. Alexander County, in the far southern corner of Illinois, lost more than 1/3 of its population between 2010 and 2020, more than any other county in the United States during that period. While Mount Vernon is north of the hardest-hit areas, the regional economic gravity is pulling downward. Southern Illinois broadly is a warning signal. When an entire region is losing population at this rate, individual housing markets don't bounce back on their own. They need major economic investment or policy change, neither of which appears imminent. Neighborhood number 60, suburban Chicago. The distant exurbs, this one might surprise you, because we're talking about properties within driving distance of one of America's great cities. But here's what the data shows. According to MoveBuddha's migration analysis, among Chicago area cities, it's the more distant suburbs that are losing residents fastest. Close-in suburbs like Oak Park actually showed more people moving in than out. But the outer exurbs tell a very different story. The reason is straightforward. Remote work surged during the pandemic, sending people further out in search of space and affordability. But as companies have pulled workers back to offices, those long commutes, once tolerable when you only made them a few days a week, have become deal breakers. Homes in distant exurbs that were bought at pandemic-era prices, when buyers were willing to trade commute time for square footage, are now competing in a market where the same buyers either want to be closer in or have left Illinois entirely. According to Redfin data from January 2026, the number of Illinois homes sold fell 12.6% year over year, and the average days on market grew to 63 days. In softer exurban markets, those numbers are likely even more pronounced. Properties that were bid up in 2020 and 2021 are now sitting longer. And sitting longer in a slow market is how price reductions begin. Neighborhood number 70, Chicago's South Side neighborhoods. The affordability trap. Chicago's South Side is a complex story, and it requires nuance. On the one hand, Zillow data shows that some South Side zip codes have actually seen dramatic price increases over the past several years. Cities adjacent to Chicago like Sauk Village, Ford Heights, and Dixmoor have seen home prices more than double since 2019, according to the Illinois Policy Institute. But here is the alarming part of that story. Those price increases are not a sign of a healthy market. They are a sign of desperation buying in an inventory-starved environment. According to the Illinois Policy Institute, Chicago's available housing inventory fell from 430,039 homes in 2019 to just 2,642 by end of 2025, a drop of 52%. When supply collapses and demand stays steady, prices spike even in areas that haven't seen real economic improvement. The danger for buyers in these neighborhoods is real. When you buy at an inflated price in a neighborhood, without strong underlying economic fundamentals, no major job growth, persistent crime concerns, population decline, you are exposed if and when inventory normalizes or demand softens. Chicago's population today is the lowest it has been in a century. Since 2000, the city has lost more than 25,000 Black residents, primarily middle-income families, according to Chicago Contrarian's analysis. That hollowing out of the middle class, in specific South Side neighborhoods, creates long-term demand vulnerability that elevated recent prices don't protect against. Neighborhood number 80, Peoria's Older West Side. Peoria is Illinois' third-largest metropolitan area, and while some analysts point to it as an area with affordability and investment potential, the picture on the ground in its older neighborhoods is more complicated. Peoria's economy has historically been anchored by Caterpillar, the heavy equipment manufacturer headquartered there. But Caterpillar has been shifting more of its operations and workforce in recent years, and the local economic multiplier effect of a major employer reducing its local footprint is significant. Downstate Illinois broadly, including Peoria, has, according to multiple analyst reports, never fully recovered from deindustrialization. The manufacturing jobs that used to anchor these communities have either been automated away or moved elsewhere. In Peoria's older West Side neighborhoods, you have aging housing stock competing for a shrinking buyer pool. Illinois Policy Institute data shows Illinois has recovered only 40% of its pre-pandemic housing listing levels, compared to a national average of 90%. That inventory shortage props up prices statewide, but in weaker local markets like parts of Peoria, it masks an underlying demand problem that will eventually surface. Neighborhood number 9, Decatur. Decatur, in central Illinois, is one of the state's more economically vulnerable mid-sized cities. The city's economy has historically depended on agriculture processing and manufacturing, particularly Archer Daniels Midland, one of the world's largest agricultural processors, which is headquartered there. But manufacturing automation and corporate restructuring have reduced local employment over time. The property tax burden here is a critical factor. Illinois has the highest property taxes in the nation, with an average effective rate of 2.08%, the second highest in the country according to Rocket Mortgage data. In cities like Decatur, where home values are relatively low, the property tax burden as a percentage of household income becomes severe. This creates a trap for homeowners. You buy a modestly priced home, but your property tax bill is so high relative to what you earn and what the home is worth that it eats into any financial benefit of ownership. This dynamic is one of the primary drivers of Illinois' outmigration crisis, and cities like Decatur, with limited economic diversification and high relative tax burdens, are on the front lines of that pressure. Neighborhood number 10, Cairo and Alexander County. We have to talk about Cairo, because what's happening here is a warning sign for any community that ignores the fundamentals. Cairo, located at the very tip of Illinois where the Mississippi River and Ohio River meet, was once a prosperous river port city. Today it is one of the most dramatic examples of urban decline in the Midwest. The data is staggering. Alexander County, home to Cairo, lost more than 1/3 of its population between 2010 and 2020. That is the largest percentage population loss of any county in the United States during that decade, according to MoveBudda's migration analysis. When you lose 1/3 of your population, what happens to housing? Demand craters. Properties become abandoned. The tax base shrinks, making it harder for the city to maintain infrastructure and services, which drives more people away in a vicious cycle. Cairo is an extreme case, but it illustrates the logical endpoint of the trends, playing out on a smaller scale across multiple Illinois communities. Population loss is not abstract. It has very direct, very painful consequences for property owners who remain. Neighborhood number 11, Bloomington-Normal. The inventory collapse, our final market, and this one is different from the others. Bloomington-Normal, home to State Farm's headquarters and Illinois State University, has actually seen housing inventory collapse, even more dramatically than Chicago. According to the Illinois Policy Institute, Bloomington leads all Illinois metro areas with a 71% drop in available housing inventory since 2018. Now, you might think that sounds like a seller's market, and in the short term it is. Low inventory pushes prices up. But here's why this belongs on our list. When inventory is this compressed and prices are elevated relative to local incomes, you create extreme affordability stress. According to Illinois Realtors, housing affordability conditions in Illinois in October 2025 were lower than they were a year ago, meaning it costs more relative to incomes to buy a home. When a market becomes unaffordable, first-time buyers are locked out. When first-time buyers are locked out, the move-up market freezes. When the move-up market freezes, existing homeowners can't sell. A market that looks healthy because of low inventory and high prices can be quietly building pressure that releases suddenly when any trigger. Job losses, rising mortgage rates, corporate downsizing, hits. State Farm, Bloomington's dominant employer, has been restructuring in recent years. Any significant change in their local employment footprint would have outsized consequences for this market. So what does all of this mean if you own a home in Illinois right now? Let's be honest with the data. The statewide picture is not a crash. According to Redfin, Illinois home prices were up 2.5% year-over-year as of January 2026. Zillow shows the average Illinois home value at $282,909, up 3.8% over the past year. But that statewide average is masking very serious localized stress. The communities we walked through today: Rockford, Springfield, Galesburg, Jacksonville, Mount Vernon, the outer exurbs Cairo, are not sharing in that average. They are being left behind, and the structural forces driving this. Illinois losing 4,000 domestic residents per year, ranking 48th in the country for domestic migration, carrying the highest property taxes in the nation, with housing inventory at just 36% of pre-pandemic levels compared to the national average of 90%. These are not short-term problems. These are deep structural challenges that require serious policy responses. If you are in one of these stressed neighborhoods, the question isn't whether your home will lose value someday. The question is whether you have a plan. Talk to a local real estate agent who knows your specific market. Get a current comparative market analysis on your property. Understand your property tax burden relative to what you could reasonably sell for. And make informed decisions, not emotional ones. Illinois is still home to millions of people who love their communities. But loving your community doesn't change the data. And the data right now is telling a very clear story about where the pressure is building. Thanks for watching. If this video was useful, please share it with anyone you know who owns property in Illinois. And drop a comment below. What city or neighborhood are you in? We'd love to hear what you're seeing on the ground.